Hi, my name is Cowell. I'm going to show you how I work with pastels, and I start off by working with mostly Murano paper, the Daler-Rowney Murano, and I check which side of the paper has a rough or a smoother side, and for flowers I'm working on the smoother side. I'm doing a very typical oil painting technique, which is blocking in, and I use a paper plate just to pull some of the colours out of this huge range of soft pastels that I've got. So blocking in big shapes, using lilac and a very dark rose colour. I'm going to be painting irises and pink roses in two different bowls. I do like this very dark background. It's called aubergine, and it is the Daler-Rowney Murano paper. You will find a list of the products that I've used on my website. Where the greens are, I'm just explaining how to draw a vase, and you've got to make sure that the base of your vases are round and not flat. So that was that little demonstration there. Basically, the colors that I'll use, I'll put the color in from dark to light, and I'm going to have the light coming in from the right hand side, so just blocking very, very quickly. I don't blend with my finger. If you do, you find you flatten your color, so I push one color on top of the other, but for the background I use the edge of my hand and just soften off the color more than actually blending it. I do want the background paper color to show through. I do like that quite dark, dramatic aubergine color. These are irises, once again just blocking in very, very big shapes. That's going to be a chrysanth that I'm working on. I hide my white away from myself, because if I don't, I tend to paint and highlight, and then your painting suffers from something that I call highlightitis. In other words, there's so many highlights that you can't actually see the painting. A great fan of blocking in from dark to light. When I draw roses, in fact a lot of flowers, I tend to use straight lines, and so if you draw a rose with a curved line, it's quite hard to correct it. So by using a straight line, much easier to correct. Dropping in little hints of colour here and there. I work with colour and then correct it as I go. Now and again I see an opportunity to put a bit of dark in, so use a dark green. Most flower arrangements have got very, very dark, almost black areas in the inside, and I'll be using that to push the flowers forward. Using a dry brush here and there to rub out if I make any mistakes is lifting out the paint. You can also blend a bit with it, but be very careful of flattening your colour. I sometimes use a putty rubber to lift paint off if I've made a mistake, or frankly I just paint on top. But I do tend to isolate the colours that I'm using into a paper plate, and I've got a favourite one that I use over and over again. Just blocking in the vases, drawing them again and again so that I get it right, dark underneath the flowers, and then taking it lighter, dropping in a few leaves. I'm using, it looks like a bit of charcoal that I'm using just to give me some dark edges here and there. Charcoal is much softer than pastel, so it's quite good for correcting or popping in dark areas, so every now and again I do take dark bits of charcoal and just really put it on quite lightly, and then put greens and blues on top of it. It just makes the tones change. I found I've got a bit of an area that I need something in, so put a bit of a pink flower. Decided I didn't like it. I thought I might bring another chrysanthemum down there, simply from the texture point of view. Those are the colours that I'm going to paint the entire painting with, so I won't select anymore. I'll just keep working with those, and that creates a bit of harmony. Dropping in the background. I'm using a mount just to see if the composition is working. I'm using a water pen here, a water brush, and pastels are water soluble, and every now and again a little bit of dampening off gives you that tonal change, which is quite handy. So for any details I do wet them, using the edge of my hand just to soften the background off. I don't fix my pastels, I don't spray them. I tend to put them under 2 mounts under glass, and they're fine, they don't move. going to work my greens now a little bit, and a bit more detail on the irises. So the irises are just great big blobs of purple at the moment, but I will go in and do some detail later on. This is very much a painting that I'm hanging back on highlighting. I have this little trick of hiding all my my whites. I have quite a few different tones of white, and I don't allow myself near them until right towards the end, and then I start lighting up the painting. So a painting does go through quite a dull, flat period of development, and you've just got to keep going with it. And the way to keep yourself going is to put the darks in and try and develop the form. Be very aware that your light is coming from the right hand side. You'll see me blocking in colour, trying to develop the shapes. I break my pastels, I don't keep them whole, I find it much easier to handle. Putting in a bit of light now, slowly developing the shape and the form. Checking my composition, making sure that the light strikes on just a few petals here and there. I do tend to work quite instinctively insofar as if a flower doesn't work, I'll take it out. So I don't slavishly copy an arrangement. I might put a few bits and pieces in that aren't actually there, but at the end of the day, nobody sees the flower arrangement, they just see the actual painting itself. Working with a bit of light. Quite a messy medium to work with, but I love it. Pastels for me is all about drawing, and drawing with colour, and what a pleasure that is. Got quite a nice acid green. This is a demonstration. I've just put my headphones down. Here come the whites, and you'll see there are quite a few different tones of white. I'm using my water brush once again just to soften off, so I'll put the white on and then I'll work the water brush just to soften off and get the changes. The light's coming from the right hand side, striking a few petals here and there. Water brush is just pushing that paint back a little, allow it to dry and come back in. It's not looking too bad. I don't blow pastels around either. I let them sit on the page, and then at the end I knock the painting, get any excess paint off. Going in with a very, very dark colour now. I think it may be a very dark blue. A little bit of drawing of the actual vases. A bit of highlight here and there. Quite like that lime green. It's giving the painting a bit of a buzz. Now I'm working the backgrounds and cutting out the shape of the irises just to make them stand out. And then of course I've got to also work the fabric below the vases. So wherever I've put the light, I'll come back in and put the dark on. Love that colour. So trying to create a little interest in the foreground as well, and highlighting some of the folds in the material, using the side of my hand to blend with. I don't get my fingers into the paint at all. A little bit of detail here and there. Taking the darks back in, making sure it all works through the frame. That mount is a little bit small, so when the painting is finished it will go into a bigger mount, but while I'm working with it, it's quite good to use a mount just to isolate. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this painting.